Hello friends, this is Vikas Bhardwaj. Welcome to Ansarkari, and today we are going to take up an important topic in continuation, that is buildings and cities in Harappan civilization. When we talk about cities and buildings in this time period, that is of Harappan civilization, we have to see two important considerations. Some part of the town was on the raised platform and some part was on the lower side. The part which was on the raised platform or on the upper side, that is going to be called as citadel, or you can say it is called as upper town, because upper town is going to have important buildings, public buildings and religious monuments and also some kind of important structures. That is why it was more prominent than the lower town. Probably in times of floods and in times of crisis, people from the lower town were going to the upper town to take refuge, or you can say to take shelter. When we are talking about upper town, for example in case of Harappa, the most important concept comes of granaries, because in the upper town there were very prominent granaries, very beautifully done in context of Harappa. It was near to the seashore because it was easy to transport it, and secondly, in times of need, you need large amount of grains. Otherwise also the upper town was not cultivating, or you can say growing, any kind of food crops. It was more of a service class, it was more of a ruling class, it was more of a merchant class. When we say in context of public buildings, if you take example of Mohenjo-daro, then in context of Mohenjo-daro also there is an example of Great Bath. The Great Bath itself was a very beautiful public building. We are not exactly sure of large number of functions, but we say there was a water inlet, there was a water outlet, there were some kind of rooms for changing clothes, and also it is believed that there were stairs and probably some kind of rituals were also taking place. What exactly were rituals, we have not been able to identify yet, because of the pictographic script, that is picture signs like script of Harappan civilization, which have not yet been deciphered, though efforts are going on for that. Iravati Mahadevan played very important role in that context. So upper town and the lower town, this is the main concept of the Harappan cities and you can say towns. When we come to houses, houses were on the streets, and probably wide streets were there, like in the present times. If you take example of a planned city in India, for example Chandigarh, it was something like that. Houses were very neatly built, they were having large courtyards, many houses were having their own wells inside homes. That means water was available 24/7, and each house was having their own toilets, and drainage system was linked with each house. It was going into a drain, and it was linked with the soak pits, and probably all of the drains were covered when we talk about the mature phase. That means houses were taking care of sanitation and hygiene conditions also. In the house there was a neat kitchen, and there was having different rooms and houses for different purposes. Probably some kind of domesticated pets were also kept inside the house, and houses were not opening on the main street, basically in order not to disrupt the traffic or to the movement of vehicles and people, and that is why they were opening generally on the side where there is no disruption. So this was the main, this because the streets were straight and they were meeting at the right angles. This was one of the main and most beautiful criteria of a planned city. That is why Harappan civilization is an example, a primary example of first planned cities in the world in that context. Similarly, if you talk about the kind of clothes people were wearing, so people were wearing, generally male were wearing complete garment, and they were having upper cloth and a lower cloth, like the way we see in the villages in the present times today. Women were also wearing garments of cotton, and also they were having jewelry also, because as I said that metals were known, not iron was not known, but you have copper, you have bronze, you have tin, lead, and there were several kind of jewelries made up of it. Similarly, in case of toys and amusements, there were all different kind of rattles, there were kind of whistles which were say for example in bird shape, and most importantly chess was invented also in Harappan civilization. It was one of the most famous amusements. Similarly, you have small toys, small carts, like the way you have the original bullock carts, which we call today also ikka or tonga, that's what we say. So in that context, we see that Harappan civilization was very much well advanced and it was prosperous. In terms of occupation, when we talk, then pottery was one of the most famous occupations. Probably in the upper town or citadel also, there were very famous and class potters who were having different designs done on pottery, geometrical designs, dots, stories on pottery, and pottery was also of different colors. It was a big pottery, as I told you already, the invention of wheel was there. That is why pottery was going to have new heights. It must have been exported also to different parts, not only in the local area but also in the faraway places, for example till the Persian Gulf to the Sumerian places. Otherwise also in terms of occupation, women must be preoccupied with the weaving and also with the domestic chores, and in that context spindles, clay spindles also have been found in excavations, and those spindles showcases that textiles was very one of the most famous and one of the most prominent occupations in those times. One of the most important signs of trade and commerce what we find is that we have clay. We have found seals of clay, that is a burnt clay, which you can say burnt terracotta, and this gives them a kind of a stability. So these are rectangular shaped clays which have different kind of designs on them. One of the most important signs and designs on them have been unicorn. It is a mythical animal. Otherwise also there were designs and symbols on it. One probable use was that the merchant must have been using them as a kind of a currency, as a kind of an access, or it might have been used as a kind of a symbol, so for the exchange of trade, and it may be having some kind of administrative significance also, that we are not very sure of, as I told you, because it has not been identified. In all totality, the Harappan civilization, towns and cities, they were large in their mature phase. They were having a great say in the in terms of signifying social stratification, because in the upper town, people, those who are ruling or the people belonging to ruling class or ruling structure, they were staying. Maybe some rich merchants were also staying in the upper town or in the citadel. In the lower town, there must have been other merchants and artisans, and you can say cultivators must also have been staying in the lower town. One most important community was that of pastoralists, those who were not even staying in the lower town but they were staying in the countryside. They will be migrating themselves from one place to another in context of seasons and in context of need. Probably these pastoralists were also acting as a medium or acting as a link between the merchants and the cultivators, or you can say between the countryside and town also. So do you see how great and beautiful was the network of Harappan civilization when we are seeing in terms of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro as an example. Though when we will see different cities more specifically, we will appreciate that it was the finest movement in terms of first urban cities of India. They were the first, it is an example of first urbanization and the first cities of India. For any kind of feedback, comment and questions, you are more than welcome, like the way you have been doing. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe our channel, and let's go for success. Thank you very much.